All right, let's go Voltron Force. Hey guys, what's going on? Memes here, and this is the Beards of Destruction podcast, episode 2. I am joined here by Orbs Board. Oh my god, I'm still yelling in my ear. Hold on. Okay. Well, you still gotta do it up there.
I'm
And
here. What's
that's
going on?
that's a very beautiful level down shirt, man. And yes, we have the Gilkman there. My apologies, Thomas, for us being tardy. It's kind of the way. I am a lefty individual. Not saying anything about that, but these things happen. Laziness and laundry is a thing. As well as we are joined by the lovely Amber. Hello, Amber. As well as Spinal Tap Tap Taparoo. What is going on, everybody? DJ Odyssey, thank you for joining us. So, what we're going to do in this episode of the Beards of Destruction, we all know there's a diversity of topics going on social media right now.
Oh, gosh.
And, yeah, politics of the coronavirus, basically. So, let's talk about something a little bit other than that, but still kind of related. So how was C2E, Orbs?
C2E2 was awesome. It was a lot of work. Literally, like from the time we got there to the time we left, it was work. Because I was almost late to my own show. I had a show scheduled at the Podcast Central booth at noon. I literally walked past security at 11:55, got there to the booth at 11:58. Put everything down, and the camera started rolling. That's basically how it went. But it was good, man. Did 2 shows, did a highlight reel on the channel. I honestly spent a lot of time looking at vendors, collecting stuff. I kind of take time doing that. But got some cool autographs from some comic artists. Met Lloyd Kaufman of Trauma Films for the second time. You can see back here, I've got the I Heart Traumaville High School. Got my Toxic Crusader.
Bringing me back, yeah.
Yeah, I got the Toxic Crusaders cartoon action figure back here, signed, autographed. Also, this is really cool. I got to show you this. This is pretty cool. So, I could have got the Blu-rays. I don't like to regress. It's all about progression. You know what I'm saying? Level up, right?
Right.
But there's a reason why I wear the level down t-shirt. So I went DVD, and there's a reason why I went DVD. And because the DVD actually came with, yes, I like the Toxic Avenger. He's great, right? We love the Toxic Avenger. But it's the Toxic Crusaders cartoon from when I was a kid is what I really, really wanted.
Ooh, that's right. Dude, people forget. I'm not going to lie. I keep on confusing the Toxic Avenger and Toxic Crusader because the Toxic Crusader was actually Plucky, I think.
No. It was the same character, but I think they had a Plucky character.
Oh no, I'm thinking of the Toxic Revenger. I apologize for the IP.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's okay. But yeah, so they did this cartoon when I was a kid, and I remember this and Captain Planet. So for whatever reason, I went with a whole save the planet type thing.
Not a bad message. Not a bad message.
No. And for those of you who don't know who the Toxic Avenger is or the Toxic Crusaders, he was a nerd who basically fell into a chemical vat and became a super human mutation. Anyway, here's the thing I've been waiting to see, memes. I've been waiting. I would love to see a Toxic Crusader meets Captain Planet comic book. Why do we not have this?
Ooh, who owns the rights to that?
Well, okay, so obviously it's Lloyd Kaufman of Trauma Films who owns the Crusaders, which I've actually talked to him about since I'm a brewer of beer. I actually talked to him about brewing a toxic beer, and he said go ahead. So he's giving me free reign to use his character.
No. Okay. Use the character. You may, just from a marketing standpoint, you may not want to call it toxic beer. Maybe you do. I don't know.
No. Especially not nowadays.
I don't know. Maybe people think it's like bleach or something. Maybe you'll sell more. I don't know.
maybe, man. But C2E2 was a blast. For those of you who know who Svengoolie is, I don't know if any of you guys out there know who Svengoolie is. But he's basically a big Chicago personality that's kind of gotten some national traction. Been around for, I think he just had his 30-year anniversary. Wow. So there was the Svengoolie, and then he came out as Son of Svengoolie. And then Svengoolie said, "Hey, I'm retired. You're no longer like you can call yourself Svengoolie now. You don't have to call yourself the son of Svengoolie." But anyway, he's a horror movie host, personality like Elvira, or the Crypt Keeper from Tales from the Crypt.
Those are the first two that came to mind.
Yeah, exactly. So it's in that vein. But anyway, I got to sit on an interview with this guy, ask him some questions within the interview. It was really, really cool. Super awesome, dude. It was a total Sven. Yes, DJ Odyssey, Svengoolie. Then I got to meet the guy. I got to hang out with him in an interview and talk with the guy. But speaking of interviews, memes, you were at PAX this last week, and it seemed like you were interviewing everybody.
Well, I did get a chance to speak to folks, and that's one of the nice things about these different events. A lot of folks like, well, how do you get into the industry? How do you break into the industry? Okay, well, you could be the best talent out there, putting out so much content and either on YouTube or other different platforms. I've seen people that have like the same quality of things that I would expect to see near documentary style on like the BBC, PBS, whatever. And even if you disagree with whatever ideological predispositions or whatever we may think they have or do have, even, here's the thing. There are a lot of talented folks out there. It's just, if nobody knows you exist, it can be hard to capitalize and get in there. And that's one of the things. You can actually go and talk to people. And the thing that I found is I'd sit there, they'd be on panels and stuff like that. And yeah, a lot of the industry, they straight up said, it's like, yes, we do talk and everything. But at the same time, it's like, that's why I'm not really a big fan of like just completely kind of crapping all over folks for this, that, or the other thing. You can criticize folks, criticize the ideas, not the people. It's just very often as human beings, we tend to be very emotional creatures. If somebody says something that we often disagree with or something, at least sometimes on the internet, sometimes say things differently than we would if a person's right in front of us. And from what I saw, it's like people do end up actually like having a certain level of courtesy. Whereas if you were just typing with our thumbs and somebody's got like a little cartoon dragon avatar and saying a whole lot of not so nice things, we might not be as charitable. But
right, yeah, no, yes, no, absolutely. I feel like that face-to-face interaction, it kind of gives control to both parties in the conversation. In a sense, you don't want that awkward moment, like on the internet, like you said, with those awkward moments. If you're talking to somebody, ask somebody a question and they're offended by whatever, you have those awkward moments on the internet. But you tend to, I think, at least in most conversations, gear the conversation to an appropriate stance, because nobody wants to have that confrontation in public. I mean, at least with me, like when people are having conversations around me, I feel awkward and I want to get the hell out of there.
Right. No, and that's the thing. And just aside from that, this is why I'm kind of a big proponent of like human dignity. And if we stick by human dignity, that means it's like, okay, we would like to have respect for ourselves, but respect is often earned. So if you show respect to others, I tend to think that they're more likely to respect you. So like, for example, if you start up, like if you disagree with somebody, we have that old thing called like the compliment sandwich and stuff like that. It's like, okay, you can pay someone a compliment for something that you think they did well as actually then kind of voice your criticism. And I had that with, I think it was either Level Up the Conversation or one of those other panels. And there were a lot of folks on the panel that many within a lot of communities I hang out with would view as very left or quite progressive in some respects. But even what they said to me, it's like, don't trample on other folks. And I'm like, oh, that's what I hear from a lot of my more conservative friends. It's like, don't tread on me and stuff. Yeah. And that's the thing. Even if we disagree, as long as you're not really putting other folks down in order to lift yourself up, I think that's a thing that most folks can tend to agree on. Now, we need to work on that in practice, just because it seems like we've made a lot of cottage industries of just kind of like hating on this, hating on that. And it's like, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of criticism to go around for, I think, a lot of things. But I think we can be a little bit more tactful, if you would, and like kind of how we go about this. Because like we can disagree on things, and we're just sitting here and we're like, okay, we're chilling. We can agree to disagree. I thought that used to be a thing. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, well, yeah, and it's funny because I found myself many times, especially in my adult life, disagreeing with people, but finding it okay. Like because I used to be like when I was younger, it would be like, oh no, this is my opinion, and you have to listen to my opinion. And I think somewhere along the way, you realize you're like, yeah, even no matter how much I tell these guys till I'm blue in the face, it's not going to change their mind. They're just going to keep arguing with me and telling me I'm wrong. It's a waste of energy. So if somebody disagrees with me, that's cool, man. Everybody's got their views. Everybody's done something different in their lives. Everyone was raised different, albeit a lot of similarities. I think that's where people fall short with it. Is just like, yeah, everybody's raised differently and been through different experiences, but in the same sense, as humans, there's still so much that we can identify with within each other, and I think that's where the disconnect happens. Is people don't look at both sides of the coin; they're just looking at the one side of the coin. That they don't agree with me. This is my opinion. Well, my opinion's more than yours or better than yours for X amount of reasons or whatever reason it may be, but they don't stop and go, this person's a human being. This person probably has family that he loves and cares about, and people who love and care about this person. A lot of times maybe they're misguided as to why they want to, continue an argument. Whatever. They fall short from that. They don't realize that we're all humans, man. Like, when you meet celebrities, I think people lose. That's another thing where people lose that. Like, oh, he was mean to me, or he didn't give me enough time when I, paid to get his autograph. What'd you think about the 200 people before that, or the 200 people that came yesterday? Like, this person's a human being. You can't expect somebody to, after signing 500 autographs in a day, you can't expect somebody to just be like, hey, man, yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you got to understand, people are human, and they have faults. We have disagreements, and I think at least with me, within that, it allows me to then step back and realize, like, my opinion is not the only one that matters here. These people obviously feel a way for a reason. And that's what it was like, let me hear the reason. I'd love to hear about why, and you could still disagree with them,
Right.
but just maybe opening your mind to coming from a different vantage point, which has happened a lot with me in my adult life, where like I can disagree with somebody, but still being like, you know what? I get it. That's cool, man. I understand where you're coming from. Not my cup of tea, but I get why you would feel the way you feel about it. And I think that's where people fall short.
No, dude. The way you kind of laid that out there, it's like I used to be exactly that way. And in some ways, I probably am still that way as well. It's like, because I remember when I was younger, it's like, oh, there is very little I don't know. Then I kind of start going to like university and stuff. And then I started learning about more topics and things. And I realized, wow, how little I actually know. Just because you have more questions about things, the world starts to get a whole lot bigger. And rather than going in assuming I'm right, let me entertain the idea, if I'm going to say I'm a skeptical person, what if I was wrong? What if this person actually has things that they can teach me as well? And this was kind of something that I did notice as well. And I asked some questions that perhaps at times they were misinterpreted. But like you were saying, it's like if you're there and somebody for like 3-4 days is literally signing all these hundreds of things and everything, and they're trying to spend some time, maybe they don't have 5, 10, 15 minutes to necessarily spend with each person because
Right.
so many people have paid. They need to go through all these folks. And to keep up that level of just interacting with people, like that can be draining for some folks. Certainly for somebody like me, I'm more of kind of like an ENTP, at least according to XX Mrs. memes, in that like when I'm around people and stuff, it starts to fuel me. It gives me more energy. Whereas XX Mrs. meme, she happened to be an INFJ, where maybe on the internet she was kind of okay, but it's like if you're getting out there, if you're outside of like what's normally your comfort zone, the areas you feel comfortable with, it can be extremely draining to people because like we're all more
Yeah.
similar than we are different, but we do each have, like you're saying, our own unique life experience as well. So
Yeah. No, absolutely, man. Um, and that's the thing too, is taking the time to like meet people halfway, and showing compassion. I think in that sense, like, yeah, I disagree with you, but I want to hear your story. um it's kind of like paying it forward in a sense. I mean, maybe not everybody sees it, but people who see you doing that, they learn from it and they carry that on into their next conversation. I constantly remind myself, like, no, like I need to slow down in my head, slow down in my head. Let's hear this out before we formulate an opinion. And sometimes that's difficult for me a lot of times, is to just like, whoa, take a step back and reassess the situation. And yeah, man, I the older I get, I think the easier it gets, but maybe that's just because I just getting old to the point where I'm like, I just don't give a shit anymore.
That is likely a factor. Again, I am not a doctor. I am not an attorney. I am not really any professional right now or anything. I'm doing the whole YouTube thing, but it kind of brings me back. Like I'd spoken with some individuals, and like one individual who I'd spoken to, Arlo. He covers like a lot of the Nintendo stuff. He's kind of got like he's the blue puppet and stuff like that. And he actually earlier in the day released a video covering that basically E3, as we know, basically has been either canceled or at least postponed until later in the year, or maybe completely done for this year. Well, they'll have it next year as well. But he also kind of extrapolated on that, and the fact is like, do we need E3? Because we have more technology, a lot of the content that's being put out and released, very often we can watch it on a live stream. It's very often kind of the same like a sporting event. It's like, yeah, you can sit there at a sporting event stuff, but at times, depending on your seating and everything, if you don't necessarily need the full atmosphere and the immersive experience, and you just want to see the game, very often watching on TV or online, you get a better seat.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, it's funny too because I mean, we've heard this for the last couple of years. E3 kind of going down anyway. I mean, and we saw companies pull out of E3. I think was Nintendo one of them, or did Nintendo actually launch their stuff on E3? I know it was Sony backed out. Sony totally did their own thing. I think last year is what it was. Yeah. I think E3 was kind of heading for the grave to begin with.
This is another thing, and I'm ignorant on those exact things. I haven't really been following E3 as much recently. I think now did they do the initial demo of Final Fantasy VII Remake at E3 last year?
I don't think so. I did a video on E3 on some of the coverage, the things that I was really excited about, and it was honestly, it's probably one of my worst viewed videos. I just don't think people care anymore.
It was really big back in the day, just because at least growing up, it was one of the initial like big electronic gaming things there. It's like you'd see all this cool stuff, and even Arlo, he kind of touched upon like some of the coverage of it. Folks are saying, well, you have a lot of folks giving their opinion and stuff. It's like, okay, so you do want just completely strict factual base? Do you want to have folks have a little bit more personality, put some of like their own like lived experience in there as well? Because I remember there's been like kind of like some controversy with this and that, certain folks getting kind of close as well. That can be an issue, but then again, within any industry, you develop relationships with different people and everything. And again, the big thing that was stressed to me, and I think like the level up your conversation panel, is basically just don't go out of your way to promote yourself by basically kind of putting others down and walking over them. Again, like, and that can be very difficult. The general basis of how I generally try to do things is whatever criticism I'm going to lay out, I'm like, okay, even though here on YouTube, I realize, yes, this is the internet, it affords people certain benefits as well. But let's face it, the way we're trending, it's like, okay, whatever I'm putting on here, generally, could this be on TV? Could this be on cable? Or if it's like something that's maybe more adult oriented, could this be on HBO? And I'm taking the past the medium of TV, which is kind of shifting online, and saying, okay, because yeah, the internet, oh look, well, we can say bad words and stuff like that. You could say bad words on TV and stuff, we just kind of bleeped them out. So It's just like, okay, is using profanity going to add to a stream, a video or something? Maybe it does. But
I think it just depends on the context, honestly.
True.
So, yeah, sorry to interrupt. But like, I don't know if you caught, but I started this new podcast on my channel called the Forgotten Misfits Podcast. And it's essentially a podcast that I host after hours. It usually starts anywhere after 10. Just to kind of keep in that vein of like the classic TV, how, you know, like, after 10 they would say they would allow some of those swear words after hours on like certain networks and TV shows, so it's kind of fit in that vein. So we started around 10 o'clock, and it's a no holds bar, swear all you want kind of stream, but that's a space that's meant for that, and it is kind of one of those things where, you know, I let people know ahead of time that, like, just so you know that this is what this space is meant for. So if this is what you guys want, come on in. If this is not what you want, then it's cool too. But there is a time and a place, I think, for that stuff. Yes, again with context. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no worries, man. And no, you bring up a very, very good point. Because what you were describing right there is the form in which a discussion or conversation is held. Because here's the thing, like if we're just at like a pub or something like that, and we're throwing back some brewskis and stuff like that, I don't know about you, but I've heard some quite colorful language in certain places and stuff as well. But like if you're drinking there like with a close group of friends or something, that is different than publicly broadcasting something on the internet that basically anybody could see as well. So it's like, okay, if you happen to be in like a Discord or a TeamSpeak and stuff, and it's a non-aired conversation and stuff, that is different as well. There's different context as well as kind of like you said, if you lay off right off the bat what's going on there, I think that actually does kind of give a lot of credence, because I don't know about you back in the day, I still remember all those things. It's like, caution, the following footage may contain graphic content that's not suitable for all viewers. I mean, you can call it a trigger warning, but back in the day, we just used to call it a disclaimer.
Yeah. Oh, and that's the thing. I put that up too. I play that whole bit. Like if you look at the thumbnail, you'll see, if you see the parental advisory logo that these slap on CDs, back like before Walmart got a hold of CDs, and then just edited the hell out of which that's a whole nother podcast. The woes of the days before the internet. But yeah, no, yeah, you're absolutely right. With the contextually, and and the steamrolling over people, basically using people to further your own, agenda. It's disgusting. I like conversation. I don't like people sharing their opinion and then walking away from a conversation. If at least with me, if you're gonna have a conversation with me and disagree with me, I want your reasonings for it, not just say this is the way it is, and then walk away and expect people to listen to that. And it's because some people do listen to that. Some people are not, I guess, educated enough to realize that like they follow people that way. It's crazy how some people follow that type of personality.
Well, I mean, we got to be fair, because Rule 14 of the internet, everyone loves a good dumpster fire. I mean, I know I love drama and stuff like that. It's entertaining and stuff. Well, at the same time, I think a lot of this does come from the top down. If all of a sudden we start to see like a lot of our leaders in positions of power kind of doing some unsavory things, it's like, well, that kind of is a signal to everyone else. It's like, well, these are our leaders and stuff like that, so we kind of take it from the top. Let's kind of jump back to the whole gaming thing, just kind of like what's going on. Yeah. One of the things that I did kind of notice, and this was something I happened to be in like a Facebook group for like the PAX East 2020 and everything. What they did is they did actually take precautions, because here's the thing. It's like, are we going to shut down the entire world? No. Was it really a huge thing then? I mean, it was kind of building up. That's the thing. People were wiping down things. People were doing other things. I kind of did the COVID-19 thing right before this with MC.
And he was saying, I was watching that.
Yeah, he was saying like a lot of times they had like those wipes in front of Walmart, and people often never used them, and now they're always using them. So I mean, that could be a positive thing. But the
always
thing
use those things every time, even before all this nonsense. I use those things.
Well, that's the thing. These are things that we've been told for many years. It's like, okay, make sure you cover up, cough and sneeze, and like your shirt, your elbow, or something like that, and wash your hands. Wash your hands. Why? Because you know what? Maybe you're perfectly fine, but if you're touching door handles, this, that, and the other thing that a lot of other folks have touched, and if they happen to be sick, can you prevent everything? No, but you can drastically lessen your chances. And if a lot of folks do that on scale, then we miss out on issues. But speaking of gaming, kind of going into the whole, are some of these conferences kind of a bit outdated, which kind of we were talking about E3 a little bit there. I'll be straight up. They had the Final Fantasy remake at a booth there. They also had...
Was this at PAX or E3?
This was at PAX. This was at PAX. I had considered going to that, but dude, it was a freaking really long line. You got to play for 15 minutes flat, I believe, was there. I considered going to it. The line was very long, so I elected to kind of hop in the much faster moving line to get a picture on the Midgar motorcycle, just because I think it's cool. So
that's awesome.
I did that, and then right after PAX, they basically released the demo for the PS4. So basically, if
Which
you have
I
a
played like
PS4,
10 times.
well, exactly. Then you can actually play it yourself. So it's like, okay, if you want to be the first to do something, that is cool. So I do think there definitely is a reason to have some of these things here because we got like the initial reviews from like a lot of the big names that work for the different gaming companies and stuff because they played it at PAX there and stuff.
Yeah.
After it came out, then pretty much anybody that happened to have a PS4 then had the ability to. So it's kind of like if you want to be the first one to see it and stuff, kind of like going to a concert or something. That's cool. But then again, if folks do want to experience it, maybe you wait a little bit more time and then you have the chance to. I think the big thing for a lot of these group gatherings and stuff like that is like you kind of said, get to meet people, do things you don't normally do, and just kind of have like that human experience with folks. Because I'll be straight up, the number one thing that I took away from PAX that I liked was the people. People were wicked cool down there, man. It was good. It was good. It's like I got there, I'm like, these are our people because everyone there, as far as I know, we shared the identity of gamer.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. Interesting question that I never really thought about memes. The whole are these things outdated? Are these things beginning to fade out? I think for some of the things that they have there, absolutely, man. Like, okay, we'll use vendors as an example. Like, I like to go there for vendors. I'm not a big fan of like I'll wait. It's weird. I'll wait long enough for a con to go find something that I want to buy when I could easily just go on the internet and have it days later. Well, my whole thing is I don't want to wait for it to go through the mail. Well, if why do I wait months to go to the damn convention when I could just have it literally in 3 days? I don't know. Maybe that's my craziness. I don't know, but maybe. But so I think there are certain aspects of these cons, these gatherings that yes have become outdated. Something I noticed, at least with C2E2, one of the biggest attractions there was the artist alley, where they have all the comic book artists signing autographs, talking to people about. And that's interesting to me because you would think it would be the celebrity meetups where you get the autographs for the celebrities and all that, which was popular, which is another reason I think these conventions continue to exist in the way they do, is because they do make a lot of money off of that, the autographs. But it's the artist alley, and that was free, and that was totally free to do. So I find that interesting because it's like the vendors are the ones that are dying out, I think, in the conventions. And we're getting more interaction with, the artists, the celebrities. You've got your panels, which I think panels are really cool. Panels are a way, especially for guys like you and me who are, at least for me, I'm definitely low tier when it comes to the pop culture, news info. But spaces like that can help us, grow as a channel. Like with PAX, like some of the interviews that you did with PAX, dude, like your content was solid all weekend long, man. Like it stuck with your channel. It stuck within the vein of your channel. It looked like you were having a good time. But yeah, you're right. I think some aspects, I guess to sum up what I'm trying to say is some aspects of these gatherings are definitely, I think, going away where some continue to thrive. And the evolution of these cons, I think, down the road would be different than what it is now.
Right, and I think that's one of the reasons, because it's like for gaming, it's like, what was the big one? Well, E3. And here's the thing: if E3 kind of for some folks doesn't necessarily seem to be serving the same purpose, I think that's why we've seen the rise of other cons, kind of like the C2E2, the PAXs, and everything like that. You have other iterations, and maybe they're a little bit more focused, because E3 is kind of more the.
Oh, memes, you've been having this trouble all night, brah. He'll come back. We lost you, memes. That's my show now. Ha 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 ha. No, he's back.
Oh, all right. Sorry. It's a pre-existing condition. I need to take care of that. But no. Basically, it seems like we have some more specified things and newer iterations. And if folks weren't a big fan, it's like, what, go out and do it yourself. That's what folks are doing there. Like I know, like within the greater anime and DBZ community and stuff, we have Kamehacon. And stuff like that.
Board games, we have Gen Con. I mean, they have their. It's like they all kind of have the same thing going on in a sense, but they're all like marketed a little differently. Like with Gen Con, you're going to see cosplay, you're going to see, pop culture booths, you're going to see all this stuff, but it's a board game convention. With that emphasis. Yeah, which sucks because like I don't think we're gonna see much more of these gatherings either, at least in the near future, man.
Well, dude, that's the thing. It's like we literally got our cons in just in the nick of time. Because I remember even PAX, there was a big thing about Sony had pulled out. I believe one of Capcom's Tokyo offices may have pulled out of as well out of an abundance of caution. And here where we were, I'm just like, oh, gamers are greater than the coronavirus and stuff. I said that pretty proudly, and then I start to see the cancellation of things like South by Southwest as well, and I'm kind of like initially a little skeptical. I'm like, are there things they're not telling us? But then when I put it all in perspective, especially like up here, it's like they canceled the Boston St. Patrick's Day parade. I don't know if
That's a
that's
big deal, dude.
dude, I don't know if that's really ever happened. To be fair, I've never actually gone down to the parade. I've been invited to the parade by friends and stuff, but I was kind of concerned. I'm like, wait, isn't the parade outside? I'm just like, should we let this control us? But then Mr. Memes, my old man, basically he pointed out to me, he's like, no, Memes. It's like, it's not the parade they're necessarily worried about. It's the tradition surrounding the parade. And I thought, I'm like, that's right. What did all of my friends do? Before the parade, you cram into all the bars that are so jam packed, you go
Yeah.
outside, and then after the parade, you go back to the bars. So now you have folks in an enclosed area, and if we're trying to, what they say is flattening the curve, rather than everyone getting all sick at
Right.
once, if we only have this much healthcare resources and everyone gets sick at once, that's when you actually start to have dramatic situations and stuff. People will get sick still, regardless of what we
Oh
do.
yeah.
There will be people that pass away, and that is a tragedy. The best thing that we can do as human beings, as perfectly imperfect creatures, is try to at least minimize the number of folks that get sick. Because if you have everybody getting sick over a 6, 12, 18-month period, and we still have the same amount of healthcare resources, that, at least over here in the United States, is something a lot more manageable than having 250,000 people sick all during the same
Yeah.
week.
No, absolutely. Now, let me ask you this. I don't know we probably don't need to get too
Hmm.
much onto this topic, but this is something I really wanted to ask you, just
Right.
because of your knowledge on everything. Um, Overpopulation. I mean, obviously that being an issue, and the whole economic, or well, the global economy, help me out, the Earth in itself. Sorry, but
Right.
you get what I was saying. Like, do you think that overpopulation is affects this, or helps progress this disease, or this virus, things like that? Tell me how you think overpopulation fits into this.
Yeah, well, at first you would have to define basically what is overpopulation. I
Okay.
hear folks saying this all the time. From what I've heard, and again, this is just my opinion and things that people have told me, is that the Earth right now, I hear folks saying, oh, we can only sustain 9 billion people. We're over 7 billion people at this point right
Correct.
now.
Yep.
I mean, one could say that it's nature always finds a way, and that if you're going to take the Animal Kingdom into a certain respect, I'm not sure if you know what mange is. I actually just found out about this the other day, but basically, if you have a population of coyotes and it
Yeah.
starts to kind of get out of hand, what will end up happening within a lot of that population, a lot of those coyotes will lose their fur and they'll end up often getting sick and die and stuff like that. And that's something that we kind of see in nature as well. Is that this? Are people losing their hair and stuff? No, no. Is it an imperfect example? Yes, it is completely imperfect. However, you could say that in some ways, I would argue more of, in some ways, maybe we've come a little arrogant in some respects because I have noticed at least a lot more folks washing their hands, doing certain things that we've always been told that we're kind of supposed to do. But I think in some ways with modern medicine and stuff, we've kind of taken that a bit for granted. And you know, if this has a positive effect, that if all of a sudden people like, you know what, we need to do this, and I don't want this to happen in the future, that could be a positive thing. As far as overpopulation goes, I mean, I've talked to some what I would consider very intelligent individuals on this. I'd say we have the technology and the ability to handle a lot more people and stuff. However, what I would say is, as far as certain systems and things we have in place, there were certain protocols and stuff for this. Because I keep on hearing a 2 week self isolation, 2 week self isolation. If we're having situations where it could be 24 or even longer than that, an incubation period, well, obviously 2 weeks isn't enough. So we have to go back, we have to adjust our protocols. And the big thing that kind of even I and MC kind of agreed upon is the fact a lot of folks are doing Monday morning quarterbacking, and they're kind of infusing the whole political aspect. Well, you could have done this better. You could have done that better. It's like, well, I mean, you could do that for pretty much everything, and just
Yeah.
try to self-optimize. Saying it's like, are you the one actually playing the game at that point? Are you the one actually making the decisions? And don't get me wrong, there is criticism to go around, but I would prefer people actually trying to solve problems, basically come up with either better protocols and stuff like that. It's just when you do start seeing viral clips on the media about people fighting over toilet paper,
Ugh.
somehow I feel if that clip didn't go as viral, there probably would have been toilet paper at my local Target today.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I saw that video you put up, dude. Holy shit, man! It's crazy. It's maybe it's because I live in a bubble. Like, I mean, I don't know. And when I say live in a bubble, whether it's you call it sticking my head in the sand, I don't know. But it's I haven't been to the store to see the empty shelves. I don't have any desire to go do that. If I really need toilet paper, I can get it from work. My boss isn't going to care. You know, I mean, like that's what I mean. It's like even with the toilet paper that's been taken off the shelves, there's always going to be more toilet paper coming to the stores, but people are fighting over it. Like, it's like, I mean, I understand they're going to shut a bunch of things down, or they could potentially shut things down. I guess kind of gearing the conversation back towards that, like with us really being the last big, gatherings of people, I would say, in this country, it's nuts, man, to see the hysteria, because I mean, with C2E2, there was, I think, 5,000 more than last year that attended this year, even considering what was going on really right before it picked up. I mean, they just really started talking about it over here. And, like, for those of you who know, like, I stayed in Chinatown, okay, during C2E2. And now it's been, I don't know how many ever days, almost over a week now. I'm doing just fine. I think people, like you guys were talking about, it's like finding a middle ground almost, like, you being cautious, being aware that it exists, that it's going to shut things down, it's going to cause some issues, but also realizing that, like, people throughout history have had it far worse than this. We forget where we come from as humans. It's like my theme is this disconnect to who we are as humans, where we're from. Like, yes, here's the thing: if it takes me, so be it. I'm just one person out of how many people in the history who have died. All the children, all the parents, all the all the things that have died since the beginning of life. I'm just one small entity of that, and life will continue to go on after me. So I try not to stress myself out about these things. So I guess it's not necessarily sticking my head in the sand. I'm aware that these things exist, but I try not to let it get me to that point where I need to run out and fight, like physically fight somebody for toilet paper. Like, that's ridiculous to me. I can get in the shower after I, take a crap. You know what I mean? Like, if I really need to.
Right. No, and that's one of the things I kind of want to check out, because I still did notice that there was still bottled water and stuff there. It looked like a lot of the standard bleach cleaners that you'd use for, like, your floors and stuff like that. A lot of that was gone. There was still disinfectant.
Stuff that's actually going to kill the virus.
Right.
No,
right.
We got to have the toilet paper.
My big thing is there was still plenty of food. Like, I had the video showing, I'm like, hey, dude, we still got Capri Sun, so there's still blessings in this world and everything.
That's right.
It's just like, wait, when it comes down to wiping my butt and eating, as long as I can eat, I think I can make do, because I have gone camping and stuff before. So it's like, you do find ways to survive, and it's kind of like you said, man, it's like, dude, our ancestors ended up surviving, that's why we're here, and if you look at the total scope of humanity, we've been through worse.
I mean,
I could be wrong, but
Oregon Trail?
Oh, dude, I love that game. I play that every morning in, like, the 5th grade and stuff like that. And it's like, you realize, it's like, okay, we need to get supplies. We need to do this. Uh-oh, people are getting sick. This is not good.
Right. Yeah, no, and that's the thing. I mean, like, humanity has experienced far worse. I mean, hell, you could say that humanity itself is a worse plague than this virus that's going around, if you look at the sheer numbers that humans have killed other humans, I mean,
yeah, no, don't get me wrong. The tale of humanity isn't always the brightest one. I dislike the plague analogy and stuff, just because I like to at least believe there's a certain level, a spark of divinity in each and every one of us. If we are created in the image of God, then you know what? We might all look a little bit different and stuff like that. there is something powerful there. And again, this is my personal belief and
Yeah.
everything, but I think there is something to that because you were talking about kind of like more of a humanist approach than we kind of maybe have done before. But
Yeah,
I,
and I guess that's to my point. There is like, yes, humanity can be kind of, to I guess lack of a better term, to be can be shitty to one another, but on the other end, there's a lot of beauty in the ability to struggle and the ability to get through those struggles. And then like we saw with like I guess we'll use 9/11 as an example, how much the country rallied together when that happened. So and I think you guys talked a little bit about this in the last stream you did, where like there's not everybody's not bad. I would say the majority of the people in the world are good people and don't want to see other people suffer. So there is a beautiful side to humanity as well. Yeah. So I guess that's where I'm at
well,
with it. I think
that's
both
the
sides of
thing.
the coin.
Yeah, no, and what you were pointing out from the previous conversation I had with MC there, it's just I'm also trying to factor this in because I think you and I are both old enough, like we remember when 9/11 happened and like
Oh
what was
god,
going
yeah.
on then, and like I'll be straight up, as soon as I found that stuff out, I'm just like, is this World War III? I thought it
Oh,
was World War III at the time, just because all of a sudden you have that, all of a sudden you start having those anthrax scares and stuff. It's just like I never remember anything like that. Like folks that are older than us still say, "Oh no, there were times when like there were tanks out in D.C. and stuff," but I wasn't alive for that. And I factor in, it's like that happened in 2001, almost 20 years ago.
yeah,
So if
dude.
you're only in your earlier mid 20s and you don't necessarily have that experience of just being like, oh my God, is the world going to end? This is the first such experience for a lot of folks out there, and that would explain, at least in my opinion, why people are scared. They don't know. It's an uncertain thing. So, what say you, Orbs?
Well, no, you're absolutely right. That's an interesting way to look at it. Like the people are just experiencing that. I mean, dude, I remember I was in the nurse's office, and I think I had a headache, or I can't remember. I remember this specifically. Somebody came into the nurse's office on 9/11 and says, "Oh, there was a bomb," blah 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 blah. Everything stopped. Class, everything. Everybody stopped what they were doing. Everybody wheeled whatever TV they could into their classroom. The old clunky TVs that were strapped down to you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
The TVs you had to strap down because they were like dangerous. They'd fall on people. Um, but yeah, and anyway, so I remember everything stopped. The TVs came on. People watched. They like sent everybody home early from school that day. There were people that left school to go to church to pray because they thought that this was going to be World War III. No joke. Like this was the end of the world to some people. So yeah, it's crazy to think because it's almost like a wound. You get a bad enough wound, give it time, and eventually you forget about the pain. You'll forget what it was like. It's maybe kind of the same thing with some people too, where it's like, given so much time between tragedies like this, people kind of their senses get dulled to it. They don't realize, what they struggled with before, during that, and now something new comes up, and they're right back to where they were before. Always the worst case scenario, I think, with most people, which is why we have this hysteria we have.
I tend to think, and this is why my number 6 universal truth is our minds tend to go to the worst place. And I think that's just kind of an adaptive thing for human beings, just because it's like, okay, let's say you're a human being kind of out in the wild and stuff like that. All of a sudden, you see something new. It's like, what are your thoughts? It's like, is this thing going to try to kill me? Is it going to try to eat me? Can I eat it? Is it friendly? It's like, can I pet this? Is it something that I find attractive? Can I mate with it? Is it going to try to mate with me? It's like, that might kind of sound silly, but these are just a lot of underlying things that I think have developed over thousands of years with us, man.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Evolutionary development and a need to survive. Yeah, and over the centuries, as the social structure changes, humans evolve socially too. So you have those differences there, where it's like, I guess to use the example, back in the plague days, people knew something was going on. Did people react the same way that they are now? Probably not, because the lack of information. As they say, ignorance is bliss. Right? Is that what they say?
I've heard people say that as well, but it's also, I'd say, the rate of information transfer. as
Okay.
well. Because before, back in the day, if you had to listen to a town crier or even just get a newspaper or something, or even just wait until like the 5 or 6 o'clock news when folks were getting home from work, that's how a lot of folks consume their information about current events. Now it's like you hop on the Twitters, you can hop on just the internet or even YouTube here, like where we are right now, and just get information. And one of the that is great in many respects, but at the same time, what is the accuracy of the information? You can always say information can be inaccurate, but if all of a sudden somebody takes something that they heard and may have been a rumor and may not be confirmed, and then other folks get out there and start making it as a statement of fact, that's where a lot of things kind of break down. And that's why, like, when I cover a lot of news topics and stuff, I list it as like an op-ed or an opinion or something, just clearly clarifying that this is my opinion. If I just,
Yeah.
I could just do a complete
Uh,
like title saying this is the end of the world. Am I guilty of that at some points? Absolutely. But it's just when you start dealing with these topics, at least I think that's one of the big things we're going to have to focus on over the next years as far as news and stuff goes on. If we are giving news and we're just giving facts, we can label it as such. If folks are giving their opinions, label it as such, just so it's clarified, so we can kind of like differentiate what's actually going on versus what people think is going on.
Yeah, I mean I think that should just be a moral point to humanity as a responsible or as an adult, as an individual who's an adult and responsible. I think we are responsible for doing that, like letting people know the difference between opinion and what is fact, because I feel like some people listen to an opinion and form it as fact, and it's like the telephone game. Like I'll tell you one thing, and then they'll tell somebody, and then by the time it gets away over here to Tony, Tony's talking about some crap that doesn't even make sense from what you originally intended it to be. So yeah. So I feel like as humans, we have a moral obligation to do this. Now, does it happen? No. I mean, you look at the mainstream media and how they're handling this whole situation, man. Like how much of this do you think is just the mainstream media, like with like the shutdowns of all the cons and the big gatherings of people? How much of that do you think is the media hype?
I mean, a lot of it is coming from the media as well as government entities. I mean, there is an argument that, I mean, this is technically what you should do because if that's the thing, and it comes down to it's like, all right, we got this much healthcare resources, we're seeing a lot of folks getting infected, and over here in the States, I tend to think that we have a much stronger healthcare infrastructure than a lot of other places in the world. The problem is if all of a sudden we're at
Yeah,
like
yeah.
we're at my mouth level for that, and all of a sudden our cases are rising. If all of a sudden you have a large group of people coming together, and especially if this has a long incubation period with still being contained, in order to minimize everyone getting sick at once, because that's the big thing. If all of a sudden we have a huge spike over just a 1 month period, that's unfortunately how we see even more tragedy and stuff. Whereas, I mean, they've canceled the NBA season, they're canceling like the NCAA tournaments, this, that, and the other thing. They're not even going to have any crowds for a lot of these debates and everything. They're canceling a lot of large gatherings. Now, I would say that's an abundance of caution just because if you do get folks in there, let's say you get one person, they don't even happen to know that they're sick because they're not showing symptoms. If they get in there, they infect a couple other folks, they infect a couple other folks. That's how you can see that large spike. And if all of a sudden we get a quarter or 500,000 cases over the case of a single month, and a lot of those folks are extremely ill, and we don't have enough resources going around, that is how we have tragedy. So the cancellation out of an abundance of caution, this is one of the reasons why people are now talking about that. Because folks like news junkies like myself and some other folks, I mean, we'll always be talking about different things that come to our
Yeah.
attention and stuff, but a lot of times other folks don't usually talk about because either it doesn't interest them until it actually affects them. And this is something that's affecting everybody. So people are talking about it. I mean, again, we happen to get our cons in, but now a lot of folks that either had tickets to E3, this, that, now they're having questions like, well, am I going to get refunded? These are these other things. And just the sheer fact that all of a sudden, I planned on doing this, this isn't going to happen.
Right.
Our minds are like, what the heck is going on? So
Yeah,
all this, yeah.
we've just
Go on.
gotten so comfortable in everything just happening, like everything clockwork that I think that some people need to take this time when everything's slowed down to take a step back from the crazy modern times and really reflect on what it's like to actually struggle through things, and appreciate the infrastructure that we've built as humanity or as a society. And I hope that people take this as a lesson. Like, we should really appreciate the things that we got, and like being able to go to conventions and being able to, spend $300 on, trick or treat action figures that you don't need, or, Troma Films merch. Like, the ability to do that is something that people did not have 60, 70 years ago. It was quite a different world back then. And when you say these things, when I say these things like 70 years ago, was not really that long ago, man. It really was not. But I think that people need to not stress out about this. Be aware of it, understand that, some things are going to be inconvenienced and that sucks. But maybe I'm just saying that because we got our conventions in.
Well, this is the thing. It's like we went to our cons and stuff. We're like, oh, well, what's the big deal? This and that. But then actually, hold on. How long ago were those conventions? It's only like 2 weeks or so ago, right?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago. Oh wow, I was thinking.
So no. And again, Orb, let's entertain this idea. If it is up to a 24-day incubation period without symptoms, technically, we may both even have it.
We're still
possibility.
We're still in that range. And I spent time in Chinatown. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, dude, I went on a trip down to Florida. I've been on planes and stuff like that. I've been at airports. I could have potentially done some, but then again, it's like, okay, it's like, just like certain things like that. Try to do that. You wash your hands and stuff like that. That's the thing. Go on.
Yeah, well, sorry, I was just gonna say, like, you brought that up going to Florida. Well, I'm supposed to go to Florida next month to go hang out with Drunk. And Drunk 3PO, and we were supposed to, we're going to do we want to do the Disney World thing, and we want to do all that. But, like, I mean, are they even going to have those open? You know what I mean? Like, there's actually another convention that I was supposed to go to with my buddy Chuck of Chuck Little Comics, MegaCon down in Orlando. We're supposed to do that next month along with all this other stuff. I'm pretty sure they're going to cancel that too.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Even my buddy Vash in the chat there, he was kind of talking about another thing. I think it may have been up in like southern Canada or somewhere out more in like the Midwest there, but another con, and it's like, oh, we check this out. I'm like, dude, no, I'd love to go on some trips and stuff like that. I'll get a kick fund me or something going on to freaking go out there. But at this point, maybe not as likely going to happen. So I don't know.
Yeah, and again, I mean, they're inconveniences, but as humanity, again, we've gone through tougher things, and I think that as long as, again, we're aware, taking the extra precautions, paying attention. Like, I've never been so hyper vigilant of touching my face in my entire life. That's at this point.
No, then that is the other thing too. A lot of times we don't necessarily even realize. Like, I was watching this. I think it was like John Talks or something last night. He was kind of just going on about some of the things. And he was kind of reading along, and then I would just kind of pay attention. He'd be saying that, he'd say it, it'd be like sanitizing, he'd say it, and you just kind of watch a live stream, just the times that we just touch, rub our noses or our eyes, our mouths, and stuff like that, that just we don't even really pay attention to. But the fact that people are paying attention to it now, maybe we can actually learn, maybe we can actually try to do better as well. And again, what scares folks is a lot of times when they look at the numbers, when folks are like, this is 30, 35 times higher mortality rate than the flu, that is terrifying. But then you try to factor in, okay, is this actually the mortality rate, or are there actual like thousands upon thousands of people, maybe in tens of thousands, that may have had it that didn't even necessarily know they had it because maybe they didn't get really severe symptoms.
Right.
Because who are we usually testing? The people that are really sick that are going in, then all of a sudden it's like, well, if you're testing the most sick people, and that's the 20% of people that get it, then what about the 80% of folks that may not? Because if you don't have that accurate data, it's going to skew whatever numbers you have there. And I'd love to see someone like an Andrew Yang, who's really big on math and stuff, kind of just explain, because like I still remember in math they kind of did something like mean, median, mode, and I'll be straight up, I don't know what the difference is. All I know is they were either averages, the most amount number of a certain number and stuff like that. And if I don't know what that is, and I'm kind of following this stuff, and it kind of freaks me out, I can only imagine all of a sudden you just hear, dude, my con got happened. What happened? Corona.
Yeah, right, right.
So
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing too, man. Like, what was it? Vash says there's always next year. Yes, that's true. There is always next year. There's nothing wrong with taking a year off from doing anything. That's okay. I mean, and that's a crazy thing too. It's like I work at a brewery. I brew beer for a living. There are still people coming in. It's not stopping people. At least I don't think it's stopping the majority of people from going out and enjoying their lives still. I think a lot of people are falling into that middle space where it's like we understand it's a thing. People are talking about it, but I'm not going to allow it to totally control every aspect of my life, which is good. I think which is good. There's a healthy way to do it, I think. But,
that's the thing. It's like, okay, if you want to basically absolutely minimize your chance, it's like, okay, well, we could all kind of become bubble boys. I guess that's an option, but then you're also factoring in, it's like, well, what's the quality of life? A lot of folks, they still got to work. They still got to put food on the table and everything. So that's why when I go down to my local Target, because I like calling it Target because I think it's fancy, and I see food, I'm able to get food for myself. I'm able to get food for my cat and stuff like that. I'm like, okay. Wiping my butt, it's like, dude, I had a cousin that lived over in Lebanon, like the Mideast Lebanon and stuff like that, and he would tell me stories. It's like, dude, a lot of times they might not have running water, so it's like they didn't really like flush toilet paper and stuff. They kind of have a thing on the side, and basically you kind of put it in there, and it goes away in the trash. So if the biggest issue we have is the disposition of basically the things we use to wipe our butts, but we can still eat. I don't necessarily see riots in the streets. If all of a sudden people are starving and stuff like that, that's when all of a sudden folks are just going to start to rise up, because that's just another matter of survival rather than an inconvenience.
Well, I mean, you already seen it with toilet paper. People are rising up and fighting each other for toilet paper. Can you imagine if, food was scarce? I mean, like, right there, just it gives you a depiction of the breakdown of infrastructure just in this whole toilet paper thing. Imagine if it was food. Just imagine. That's we were fighting over a 6-pack of toilet paper.
Oh, dude, I was straight up to somebody I was having a discussion with, I think, like 2 months ago. It's like, dude, if all of a sudden all these stores and stuff, like they closed down and my local Wendy's wasn't open, in a week I'm probably gonna starve.
Totally, dude. I'd keep Wendy's open for sure. Frosties all day. Real quick, Vash, yes, I have had Dragon's Milk. It's good. It is pretty good. As a matter of fact, you can get a tin poster up in the loo at work in the office of Dragon's Milk. Sorry, I had just a beer thing. Sorry.
Right. How was what type of brew would you say?
It's a stout. It's just a barrel aged coffee. I don't think it's coffee, but it's just a barrel aged like stout. Probably about 12%, I think. 12% alcohol. It's basically liquor.
Well, I mean, that's a very we'll say portly stout. I'm not sure if that's the correct verbatim. I haven't talked beer with somebody since probably ex Mrs. Memes' brother-in-law. He happens to be a brewer up here as well.
Oh, right on. That's cool. But yeah, I mean, so I guess to my point is like there are people who are not allowing it to affect their lives. I think that's good. I don't know, man. Like, part of me is like, okay, you go back to like World War II. And over in England, they would have that I think I've talked about this before, the sign, keep calm and carry on, which I think is a good thing to kind of latch onto during this whole thing. Keep calm and carry on. Understand that there are things happening, but don't let it totally affect your life in the sense of where you have to kill yourself stressfully over it. I mean, what is the number one killer in the world, or at least in this country? Stress-related illness.
It's, well, it definitely is a contributor. I think it might be heart disease or over here. It depends on, but that's definitely a major factor within it and stuff. Because like, if you're all stressed out and everything, that's going to add extra anxiety, could put extra stress on your heart. No, it definitely is. Dude, even I've worked jobs in the past in corporate sales and stuff where I watched a dude come in. Literally, he had basically a full goatee and stuff like that. Was basically this color right here. I watched within a 1 year period, all of a sudden, it go almost completely gray.
Yeah.
because that is a thing. It definitely does do something as well. And oh yes, and welcome Miss Sharadi as well. I have been told that as well. Apparently, I need to eat more sandwiches and actually hit the gym because
You looking good, bro.
I don't know about that. I'm probably the unhealthiest I've ever been for a good number of years. I need to definitely level up and get my butt back in the gym, which also goes into some other things because you were talking about Disney World and stuff, and folks were talking about that because, like, as far as I understand, Disney is still open now. The
Disney
thing is,
World.
okay, Disney has Disneyland shut down.
Disneyland will be shutting down, I think, as of Saturday.
That is something I didn't hear, and I would tend to think that Disney World would probably follow a similar thing in the future there. The thing is, a lot of it is outside, but then again, at the same time, there's very long lines. I still remember waiting 108 minutes to go on the Avatar ride, which was totally worth it for the Avatar 4D. Like 5 to 6 minutes there for flying around in the Banshee and getting
the ride is like 6 minutes long?
Yes.
Oh, that okay. Now that might be worth it for like 108 minutes.
Well, that was also the fast pass. So I'm estimating there, but dude, it was wicked fun. It literally felt like you were in it and stuff. So just don't drink a lot of coffee beforehand. That's just a personal recommendation before you hop on that ride. But no, it was wicked cool. I'm glad I got a chance to go down when I did. Even if it may or may not have helped end my relationship at the time. But that's a completely other issue and topic in and of itself there.
Hey, Sharardi, look, address that in the chat there.
So apparently Shirai's asking, and why is that wannabe memes wearing a level down shirt? Well, Miss Sharadi, you are talking about Orbs Board, the other half of the Beards of Destruction. Because as you can see, I got a level up shirt. He's got a level down, and he's actually ahead of me because if you look at the back of his shirt...
Let's see, here we go.
Yeah, I need to get more shirts just because mine just has the classic Hulk Hogan kind of speed holes and stuff like that in it there.
That's because you're OG. That's because you're OG.
Well, it also used to be a concert shirt, so what I do is I would soak it in water, so when I'm out, like, at a concert, like the Ozfest or something like that, and it's, like, freaking 70, 80 degrees, and I'm moshing for, like, an hour or so, it's like, gotta keep the core temperature down, or I'm just gonna freaking pass out, so.
Good call. It's not, so it's not just sweat in there, it's a little bit of water, too.
Right. Well, I mean, this is more of a broadcast shirt, that's why I have, like, the layers here and stuff, so I don't completely stink and have to do as much laundry.
I need to cut my sleeves off and get that going.
It's all right. It's proper ventilation, man. But so Orbs, we've been going for a little over an hour here. Anything else you kind of want to touch on?
No. I just, I mean, I'm sorry for those whose cons or gatherings have been canceled due to this. I hope that this all. I think they're projecting it to be done coming into the summertime or starting to ramp down coming into the warmer weather. So I'm sorry for those of you who did not make it like we did to our conventions, but I hope that they definitely either refund you guys or take care of you in some way. That would only make sense. These are things that we can't foresee happening. I mean, I guess we kind of knew ahead, but we did. Who knew that this thing was going to exist? So. Keep your heads up, guys, out there, and stay tuned to the Memes of Destruction. Because he's giving good information and looking out for everybody. So,
well, no, I'm glad you feel that way. I'm not sure how well I'm doing. I'm just trying to do what we can do here. But be sure to check out Orbs Board over here. His link should be in the description below as well. But it's at times like these. Yeah, is it an inconvenience for a lot of this? But you know what? Times like this really put things in perspective, and it kind of helps us reflect back on what's actually really important in life rather than the things that we necessarily want, more along the things that we need to do to just continue rolling on. So, hey, thank you for joining me, everybody. Thank you, Orbs, for coming out.
Absolutely, the Beards of Destruction.
Yeah, and this concludes episode 2 of the Beards of Destruction podcast. Thank you all for joining, and peace out, everybody. Oh, hold on. No, I need to hit the thing the right way. There we go.